Well, welcome everybody to our second week of our COVID health questions that we'll be fielding this week. Hope everybody tuned in last week. If you didn't, be sure to go to the Lamesa ISD website and tune in there for our previous video that we did last week on Facebook Live. It's been downloaded for you to view there. This week we had asked you to send additional questions in if you had questions from last week that we didn't get answered. And unfortunately on our Facebook Live we had some of those got caught in a filter, and so we didn't get those when we were live, but I think we ended up getting another 40 questions. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about those. But before I do, I want to introduce you a little bit to our website and what it looks like. And I'm going to turn the attention over to our screen and take you through what it looks like on our website. And I'm going to take you back a step. If you go to our website, that's just the very home page of it. If you come over here to the menu tab and you drop down on it, if you'll come over to About Us and drop down 3 spots here, there's 2 new informations on the calendar. And if you look over here, this is our COVID-19 coronavirus site. So if you will click on that, it'll automatically take you onto the website. And we've got a lot of information here for you that if you haven't checked this out, this is a good place to go and keep up with things that we're doing. Our Facebook Live last week is right over here. You can watch that in its entirety. You can come up here. We got a back to school letter that hasn't been released yet, but it will be in the paper shortly, so you can go ahead and read that if you like to. We've got our plans that we just vetted through the board last night. We got our instructional back to school plan, and that's what our plan is for instruction. So I'll pull that up real quick for you just to let you see what it looks like. And I'm not going to go through all this. We talked a little bit about it last week, but it takes you through the things that we're going to be doing, the expectations we have of parents and students and teachers. It also tells you a little bit about what the difference is going to be between our face-to-face learning, which is going to be at the school, and our LISD school at home, which will be our remote learning. And it kind of has the expectations, what platform we're going to use, what synchronous learning is, and what asynchronous learning is. It kind of defines what those are. Tells you your expectations here. It kind of goes through the whole gamut of what we're looking to do instructionally. I want to point out one thing to you, and this red bullet area, it's real important, and that is students must understand that LISD school at home attendance is based on their daily engagement, not solely on the completion of assignments. The state law and Lamesa ISD policy, our local policy, still requires students to attend at least 90% of their classes, and that's going to include your online students. So last year we didn't count that. It was waived. The state waived this particular law, but this year it is not being waived. We do have to count kids absent if they're not engaged even remotely. That's very, very important as parents for partnering with us, that you make sure that your kid's engaged. So this kind of takes you through it. I'm not going to go bore you with reading off of this list, but it would be important for you to go check that out. The next thing I'll point you to, and I'm going to go over here in a minute, is our wellness and our safety plan guide right here. And so we can click on that and look at that in a second. And the other thing is our frequently asked questions. Last week we had around 40 questions that we answered. We've added to that about 40 more, or close to that, for this week, and I'm going to kind of deal with those here in a minute. And so you need to kind of click on that. They've already been answered. I'll answer them tonight, and you can go back and refer to that later. We've also put a few other things on here. If you haven't seen these are your Cdc Guidance for schools. This was put out last spring. I think that's probably going to be changing here in the next few weeks, and we'll update that. Your Department of Health, your Department of State Health Services there. There's a COVID tracker for the nation. And then just a few other videos here that we have on our website. I'm going to take you real quick to our health and safety plan and talk a little bit about it. This is what everybody's asking about. So be sure and tune into this. It's only 6 pages long, so it's not going to take you a long time to read through. It's taking you through all the way our general safety protocols, and I'm not going to read all those for you. And then it's going to take you through some of our screening protocols that we're going to have of, looks like did it shrink there on me? Looked like it shrank on me here. Just one second here. There we go. So It's also going to take you through our pre-screening of how that's going to work. We're going to ask parents to screen their students before they come to school, both temperature and just for COVID symptoms. And you're kind of giving us the green light that your student is good and clear to be safe to come to school. These are some of the protocols. It talks a little bit about what happens if a student does get COVID or a teacher gets COVID. Talks a little bit about what we're going to do. What does it mean to be close to someone with that? It kind of gives you some illustrations here. If you come on through the rest of this document, it goes through, again, more screening that we're going to be doing here at the school. Just if kids are running temperature or things to that nature. It also tells you the protocol for returning back to school as a student and any other employees that we have. It also goes through a lot of our bus pickup, our visiting of the school, transportation, and some of the health and safety protocols we're going to put in for the school district. So I'm not going to go any more into that because I want you just to read that. I believe all of you guys can read that and follow up with some more questions if you have them. So we're going to now turn our attention to some of the questions, and you can follow along on these if you want to from the website. It'll start from last week. We're starting with question 37 on the website, but I'm going to kind of go through these and answer these, and if you have more questions, we encourage you to ask those. Before I go any further, though, let me just say this. I don't think that there's a right decision on this. I know everybody asks me all the time, what should I do? What should I do with my student? And what I keep telling them is I'm not sure there's a right answer to that. It's only right depending on the circumstances of your family and what your conditions are at your family. If you have a very vulnerable student, or if you have a grandparent that you're raising a student and you're vulnerable, then you have to make those decisions. You have to look at our safety protocols and decide if that's going to be what you want to do. Remember, we're going to have an incredible online digital platform for your students at home. We prefer you to be at school. We want you here. We feel like that's the best learning environment. But if you feel you need to make that decision to be at home, then we welcome you to do that. It's going to be almost identical what a student does at school and what a student does remotely. We've mirrored our platform and our instruction delivery that the student in the classroom is going to get pretty much the exact same thing as a student that's going to be at home. There's going to be a few exceptions to that. Obviously, you're not going to get the engagement aspect of being able to follow up with the teacher at their disposal. But other than that, it's going to be really close mirrored to the same. So we encourage you guys to study these documents really closely, because what we're asking you to do is, starting next Monday, is online registration. We need you to go ahead and register your student just like we normally do every year. And at the very beginning of that, you're going to have to declare, do you want to do in-person instruction? And it has a detail of what we're going to be doing there. And it talks about, do you want to do remote instruction, which is learning at home? And has some of the guidelines there. This will be a 9-week commitment. So our grading periods are 9 weeks. So you'll be committing for 9 weeks to that. Now, and so you'll be able to change 2 weeks prior to the end of that 9 weeks and let us know. And then the following 9 weeks, we'll be able to reschedule and get you back either in school or help you go back digitally. So be sure and look at those choices. And as you study all this, really study it carefully, what you want to do. And if you still have more questions, we're going to encourage you to ask those even throughout this next week, and we'll get those answered for you. All right, let's start with question 37. If my child is too sick to do virtual learning, how will that affect their grade and attendance? First of all, our attendance is going to be normal. So if a student's sick at home or whether he's sick at school, all you'll have to do is call in to notify us that they're sick. We're not expecting them to work if they're not feeling like working and if they're sick. That'll be just considered as a regular absence. As far as homework, as far as doing their work and how would it affect their grade, it won't affect their grade if they're absent. They'll obviously get to make that up. So pretty much like you do when you're at school. Our attendance policy is changing, and how many unexcused, excused, allowed. Attendance policy is exactly the same as it's always been, and it'll be the same for whether you're in person or whether you're remote. Our attendance, let's go on down, 39. Along with quarantine, will a COVID test be required to return to school if teachers and students are exposed? they're going to have to be medically cleared. Now, whether or not that's through a test or whether that's through a doctor clearance, they're going to have to be medically cleared if they had COVID. And so some doctors don't require a negative test. Some of them just require symptom-free. So that's going to be a medical decision based on the medical facility they go to. 39, along with quarantine, will COVID tests be required? We already answered that. My fault. Let's go to the next page here. 40, will students be required to wear masks to go to the restroom or between classes? Will water fountains be available? And can your students take their personal water bottle or cup from home? So the answer is no. There will be masks. No mask to go into the restroom if they're just going to be going singly from the classroom to the restroom. That's not going to be necessary for them to wear a mask, but it will be necessary for passing periods. We're also going to, water fountains, if we cannot retrofit our water fountains, which we're working on right now, then we will have to cover those up. So we would encourage you to bring your student's water bottle to school because we don't want that. That's common touching. We don't want that to happen. My child takes medicine at lunch. How will that be handled? We'll handle that just like we have in the past. That won't change anything. You'll need to bring that, give us instructions. Our nurses will take care of that. We have certified nurses on most every campus right now, and that's going to be a positive for this next year. Are we allowed to have lunch with our child, and can we drop off lunches? And the answer to that is no. And again, it's not because we don't want to. It's a safety protocol. It's the exchanging of those lunches and who's all having to touch them. So the answer to that's no, and we're obviously not letting visitors in as much as possible unless it's for emergencies or for special meetings. May we walk in with our child in the mornings? For the most part, no. We are looking at some possibilities for pre-K. You know, that is a very difficult time when the pre-Kers come to school. Our elementary staff are working on some procedures and protocols for that, and we'll get back with you on the little ones. How will birthday deliveries be, and for both students and teachers, will they be allowed? And no, we will not be allowing those type of deliveries as well. Again, not because we're trying to restrict, but because of health purposes. Classroom parties, birthdays, and again, we're not going to be doing those. That's gathering a lot of folks in a common area. Will teachers and staff be allowed to leave during hours such as lunch? If so, what's the difference between them leaving and coming back? We're working on some protocols with that. We will say this. Obviously it's different for adults than it is for kids. There will be some restrictions put there, and we're working on some guidelines on that and working through that. Sounds like we will not have access to our child any time, and asking a little bit about. Let's see, we are for our child to return to school, but there's a lot of unanswered questions. Most importantly, with the fairness and safety for all parents, we are hoping to follow the best practices for TEA. Okay, we know that you don't understand, and we're trying to restrict, but those aren't because we've never done that before. This is just because of the COVID. So know that we have to take these precautions, and if we don't, then we're being negligent. Is the way we feel about it. Will the whole class quarantine if a teacher tests positive, or will a sub be brought in while the teacher is out? No, the whole class won't necessarily be quarantined. Now, at this stage, we're waiting for CDC guidance, and we're waiting for our health department guidance and TEA guidance. They have not given us any specifics about what's going to take place when a case happens in a classroom. So as of right now, we're going to have to obviously either clear that building or campus, or maybe just a classroom, clean the building, return back to school. There's going to be a lot of discretion put on parents whether or not they want their student to come back and how much they feel like it was spread. We're not going to have a lot of that information because we're not going to know how close people were, but we're hoping CDC and we're hoping that the health department and TA come up with some guidance. And I was told today on a webinar that's supposed to be coming next week. So as soon as we get that, we'll be able to be a little bit more specific on that right there. If all the schools are required to shut down again, will there be enough laptops for all the kids? Absolutely. Mr. Enfinger has already worked hard on that, and we are going to be able to be one-to-one with every student in the district if that happens. As a matter of fact, even if we have a partial shutdown where one campus shuts down, our goal is going to be that the instruction we've been doing in class they'll take their digital device home, And all they'll be doing is doing the exact same thing the kids were doing remotely at home, and now all of those kids will be remote and they're receiving the same instruction. And we'll be able to be very, what I call, nimble and move from on-site to digital because we're going to have one-to-one devices. So that's going to be really good for our students. Do I need to buy supplies if we are planning online learning? And the answer is probably buy the supplies you need for home. If you decide to come back to school, they'll need those supplies that were on the supply list. So you kind of make the discretion on what you want to do there. Let's go on over here. Will parents be able to drop off a lunch? We talked about that earlier. No, because of safety hazards and safety protocols. Are students going to be sent home for a cough or other things that could sincerely be blowing dust or allergies where they live, and if so, will they be required to get a negative COVID test to return? The answer is no, we're not going to make them have a COVID test for a cough. Now, our nurses will handle those on an individual basis because our nurses are the specialists. And if this kid has got multiple symptoms, obviously we're going to send them home until they're symptom free, until they can get some type of note from the doctor. But we're not going to be requiring COVID tests. That's up to the parents, and that's up to the medical authorities. Let's see here. If a student is sent home with fever, will they still will only get 2 unexcused days before a parent has to bring them back? The same thing, we'll be using the same protocols we have in the past for fever. We need to be fever free for 24 hours before they come back. What you need to understand is typically a lot of students do not have fever. They're asymptomatic. So most of the guidance we've received is taking temperature for COVID is probably not the best way to detect for COVID. It's really going to be other symptoms. So we're not going to hang our hat on the temperature for kids. Now we will for adults because that's prevalent in adults. If a student is sent home for any illness, whether the symptoms are typically associated with COVID in children or not, will they have to take a COVID test to re-enter? The answer is no. We're not going to be forcing people to take COVID tests. That's going to be up to the parent and the medical professionals. Are there any circumstances where the district may try to demand a COVID test before allowing a student back on campus? And the answer is no, we're not going to do that. We want them to be symptom-free, and we'll be working with parents on that. Will teledoc or distance doctor appointments that result in doctor notes, excuse absences be accepted during this time of the COVID? And we are going to work with you on that. And if we haven't been allowing that, that is a very common practice. We definitely want to encourage that because teledoc is a great way to get your kids treated. Will programs like the parent-teacher organizations be allowed to continue their involvement in schools? At this time, we got a hold on that. That doesn't mean that we won't. We're going to still work through that right now because we really do appreciate all of the parent-teacher organizations and how much they help our teachers. So that's something that we need to discuss further. But as of now, that's going to be on hold. Okay, let's go to last couple pages here. UIL. Do we think UILTA may recommend canceling games? Well, we just got notification just since these questions came out, and I answered those, that UIL has for classes 1A through 4A is on schedule. They'll start two-a-days, a week from Monday, and they'll start playing on a regular schedule for 1A through 4A. They did delay 5A and 6A because those are very dense population areas, and they're bumping their schedules back. I want to say 3, maybe 4 weeks, but UIL is on schedule. That means band marching, UIL athletics, you've got all the volleyball, then you've got all of our co-curricular activities will be part of that. And so it sounds like we're back on normal for that, and we'll see what happens there. A lot of people have asked about students. Are they going to be required to be, and I know this is a question somewhere, at least it may not be written down, but I think it came in late. Are students going to be able to participate if they're online learning? And we had this discussion last night with the board, and we're going to be making that determination on Monday, but it looks like from the consensus of the board that students are going to have to be at school and be present in the classroom on a daily basis to be able to participate in all of our co-curricular and UIL activities. And there's a lot of reason behind that. I would say that I saw a survey the other day from all the Region 17 schools, And I want to say it was 95% of them are enforcing that, because the point of that is that if a student is at risk or putting someone at risk, then it's counterproductive to allow them to come expose themselves to risk at football if they couldn't come to class or they couldn't come to the regular school day. And so I know that most of the schools in Region 17 are abiding by that. Just FYI on that. Will distance learning students have to be online the entire 8 to 3 school day, or will there be time away from the screen to work, workbooks and handouts to break up the day, and will their schedule include PE? So each campus, to answer that question, each campus has a little bit different time allotments for what they're doing, and it'll look different from pre-K, K1 and 2 than it will 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and it'll look a little bit different at high school. But yes, they will have breaks away. It won't be solid instruction from daylight to dark, obviously, but there will be a lot of requirements during that time for them to be engaged. How will we work? Turn in physical work, if there is any. There is going to be no physical work. There is going to be no packets, and there's, like we had in the spring, all of that is not going to happen. Everything's going to be through Google Classroom and through the digital devices that we'll hand out students. Are there any changes to the supply list, so forth? No changes. But anyway, a lot of this asks about school supplies and hand soap and that type. Will I need all that if I'm going to be at home, and how much of that we'll need if I come back? Well, if you come back, we're obviously going to need you to bring some of that with you. It may be prorated, where if you only come back for 9 weeks, you may not need all of the school supplies. So we'll work with you on that. Students be penalized for alternative methods to solve a problem. If he's working like a math problem, can I show him the old way I used to do it, so forth? Listen, all we really want from our parents is to be a partner, and students are not going to be penalized for somebody showing them how to do something differently. We just want you to be a partner with us in these efforts online, and we appreciate you being willing to do that. If someone wanted to donate masks for staff or students, where would be the best place to do that? And I answered on here, the best thing to do would be to deliver those to the campus and work with the campus individually to take those to them. If one teacher tests positive, who teaches 5 classes a day, do all the children have to go to quarantine or get tested? The answer to that question right now is no. That's going to be a parent's discretion. If we get more guidance from CDC and TEA, then that could change. But as of right now, we're not going to force 5 classes of kids to go get tested and that type of thing. So don't know if that answers your question. I know that's a difficult one. And right now, we're in uncharted territories. We've never been here before, so CDC's leery to come out with the guidance, and I know that TEA hasn't come out with any yet. If one teacher tests, here we go. How will sports take place in middle school and high school? UIL has not really declared that, but they have now. So middle school will come to school and practice just like they normally do, and their schedule will be just like it would have been if COVID wasn't here. So it looks like we're on schedule for 1A to 4A. Will the special education bus still drop off and pick up? Absolutely. Buses will run. We're encouraging parents to drop off their kid themselves. We're encouraging parents to walk their kids to school versus ride the bus. A lot of reasons for that. It just cuts down on exposure and keeps social distancing down. Will a negative test be required to return to school? No, a negative test is not what we're going to be looking for. It's a release from a doctor if a student has had COVID. Will South Elementary students have laptops issued to them if they choose distance learning? No, they're not. They're going to actually use iPads, so they will have a digital device, but it will be an iPad. Are the online classes going to be interactive, live with teacher in the classroom? Absolutely. It's going to be a very engaging, interactive learning lesson, and it will be live. Most of the time, K1 and 2 will be a little bit more asynchronous, which means you give a little mini lesson, and then the parents have to partner with us on the reading on the other end. Are the online classes going to be interactive like with the teachers in the classroom? Yes, they are. If a student is going to doing distance learning who is sick or weak and can't do the work, what will happen to their grades and attendance? Parent needs to treat that just like a kid's sick, call it in. That way, student's not going to be accountable for attendance or work that day, just like he would if he was regularly sick. Will my autistic child still be able to receive speech and occupational therapy with remote learning? Yes, absolutely. Everybody's going to still continue to be able to get service. How will this work for Lamesa Success Academy? It's going to work just like the rest of the other campuses. They'll have digital devices. They'll be doing remote learning as well. I know I went through those very quick, and I spoke really fast. I hope that answered a lot of your questions, and I know we may have some coming in. Frankie, any more big questions? Couple? Okay, Frankie's going to share those to me. I want to, again, encourage you to look at our website if you haven't done so. And one other thing I want to encourage you to do, if you haven't, most of the guidance that we're getting is not just coming from me. I wish I was smart enough to give you all that guidance, but a lot of it is coming from TEA, and they have a coronavirus website on TEA's site. So if you want to Google, you can Google TEA coronavirus, and it'll pull up a link to their website to where a lot of guidance for schools is. And so you can fact check us anytime on any of those sites. We're as transparent as we can be. Okay. Okay, yeah, we get to meet the teachers or walk them in on the first day. We're working on that. We're not so sure that that's the best protocol. We will get back with you on that. That's something that we're discussing and trying to figure out what the best practice is. We don't want this to feel like that you're handcuffed, but at the same time we've got to remain healthy and safe. And so we'll get back with you on that. Yeah, if a child chooses athletics and online learning, I think we're going to determine that on Monday. But to answer your question is that it looks like from what we talked about yesterday at the board meeting, we're going to recommend that the student is in athletics, that they'll need to be present at school to be able to participate in any UIL activities. If a child leaves for a doctor's appointment, a lot of times that's an orthodontist, that's a dentist, it may just be a well checkup. We just want to make sure that a parent does not bring a student back that's running temperature or has any of those COVID symptoms. You have to sign and declare because we can't have students. We can't plan if we have students bouncing back and forth every day. That's just not a great environment. We don't know. We have to take attendance. We have to set up some protocols for attendance. We have set some protocols up in our learning groups. And so, I'll let you know that this isn't just a Lamesa ISD model. The entire state is taking this approach on declaring for the grading period that they have to declare that. So just know, I know that you may be thinking this is Lamesa. This is really a statewide. Most school districts are doing that. Okay, you just go to our Lamesa ISD website. We will share that link. We will share that link out with you later this week through a remind, and we'll start registering on Monday. Absolutely. If a parent wants a child to wear a mask, they can wear them all day. We are not going to. We won't be requiring them to. If we get a note from a parent, we'll make sure that we help comply with that. We're asking parents also to go buy masks for all your kids because we have masks. We don't have enough disposable masks to give every kid every day all year long. So we will have some to provide, but at some point in time, we need parents to send them with a mask, and then make sure you wash those masks and keep them clean if you have them wearing them. Kids will be eating lunch in the cafeterias. Some of them we're going to be doing lunch in the classroom. We are mitigating and making sure that we have small groups of classes that go to lunch. That's another reason we can't have parents in there, because we have a lot of parents come eat, and that takes up space that students could be in, and we have to social distance those kids. We've got some plans in place. Our principals are working on some really, really good plans to make sure we mitigate and keep social distancing at lunch and at breakfast time. Absolutely, we're working on that. We're not probably going to do a formal open house just due to the overcrowding, but we're working on virtual open house, and we're looking at virtual conferences. Students can take their lunch from home, absolutely. We're just asking that parents don't bring the lunch at a later time, because then we have to take that lunch and it has to go into other people's hands, and that's where we get some of the spread. So if it comes straight from home to the kid and the kid's handling it, that's the reason we're not allowing the lunches to be brought at a later date. To work after hours on the online learning, absolutely. We're going to work hard on that, because we want the kids to be engaged during the day, and we're going to give notifications to parents that if they weren't engaged, we're going to really expect the parent to come home and get the kid engaged before midnight that night. We have to take attendance by 3 o'clock, and we're going to let you know they were absent. Now, if they get the work done between 3 o'clock and midnight, when you get home from work, then we can go remediate that and make sure we get the absence taken off and counted present. But if it's done after that day, the work's late and they were absent that day, and so it's just going to be like they were absent from school that day. So it's real important that you partner with us and get home and make them do that, and we encourage that. Okay, if any student has a health issue, masks are not required. That's kind of uniform across. We're not going to enforce someone to wear a mask. It's counterproductive to their health. Okay, I kind of went over that earlier. The 90% attendance rule is in play this year. So whether you're online or whether you're at school, because the 90% attendance law is in the books, we would have to file if your student exceeds the 90% attendance. So in other words, they have to be here 90% of the time. If they're not, that's the only time we ever file on a parent, is because the student is missed. It's about 18 days is what it ends up being of school. It's a lot of school days to miss. People don't realize how much that is. But yes, it's still in play, and that's a law, and we can't decide to not do that. We're working on pre-K, but no, pre-K is not going to be offering virtual learning. We are working on some models for that. I say that. I have to get with our elementary folks, because they're working on that right now. That's a great question. We'll get back with you on that, because I don't want to be misspoken there. Okay. Well, if you have medication, we want to do that like we've always done it. We'll just have you go ahead and bring it to us with instructions, so our nurse will know, and our nurses can be able to give that like we always have. So we'll set up a time for that prior to school starting. Yeah, that's unfortunately, at least for the first semester, they will. Our cosmetology facility will be finished in about the 1st of October. And we probably won't be able, we can't just in the middle of the semester come over. So we'll finish out at Howard College, and then at semester transfer over here to our facility. We're working on that, but at this time it looked like the consensus from the board on Monday, where they're gonna discuss that a little further. But because of health issues only, we're probably going to close high school lunch this year. Buses will run, and we will pick up, and we will have social distancing. We're going to have hand sanitizers, and we're going to be wiping down the buses every day. And so we'll be taking protocols. We're hoping that parents will either walk their kids or bring their kids to school, so we'll have room for the kids who really do need to ride the bus in the morning and afternoon. Absolutely, yeah. You can help them after school. We just want that work to be done. It's going to be, remember, all digitally. We're going to actually get some videos out in the coming weeks to make sure parents can know how to use our online systems, and make sure that parents know exactly how the instruction's working and how it's being delivered to your kids. So, absolutely. Yeah, we absolutely are not all going to be tested for COVID-19 before we go back to work. The protocol is you're not usually tested unless you have symptoms, and we are not in the health business, and so we believe everybody's responsible for their own health, and we're going to have them self-screen every day, and we'll be taking temperatures of our employees. So we've been doing that since the very first day that this happened. Yeah, we'll be using all digital. Everything will be digital. We actually have digital worksheets as well this year. So everything is going to be on our Google Classroom platform, and that'll go for kids at school, in the classroom, and all that's doing remote learning. Okay, I know we may have a few more questions that are still coming in, but I think we need to kind of wrap it up. We know that after about 30 minutes, people's attention kind of are lost. But I appreciate your time tonight. If you have more questions, please ship them to us like you have been. We'll be sure and get those answered. We may have to get them answered through email. And we do appreciate your partnership with us. And we're excited about your kids coming back to school. And we hope that these guidelines, these instructional guidelines and these health guidelines, after you read through them, we hope that encourages you and helps you realize what all the efforts our people are taking to make this the very best school year we can make it and the safest school year we can make it. So again, I wore the shirt today, and I want to thank you, Melissa Costas, for getting this for me during the middle of all this pandemic. But we want you to keep feeding your faith and not your fear. And we appreciate all of you guys. God bless and have a good evening.